You are listening to the Mentally Oddcast, where we talk with creatives about neurodivergence, trauma, addiction, and all the other things that impact and inform our art. Our goal is to show everyone that no matter what you're going through, you are not alone and you can make art about it. You are listening to the Mentally Oddcast. I am Wednesday Lee Friday, and we, as always, are brought to you by Sometimes Hilarious Horror Magazine. This week, we have Michael Allen Rose, who is an award-winning author, musician, and performer based in Chicagoland. His novel, Jurassic Christ, won the Wonderland Award for Best Bizarro Novel of 2021, and the very next year, in 2022, he received the Wonderland again for Best Collection for his ABC primer, The Last 5 Minutes of the Human Race. He is the president of the Bizarro Writers Association and the editor-in-chief of the micropress Rochambeau Publishing. He also makes industrial music under the name Flood Damage. He loves tea and cats. Welcome, Michael. Thanks for being here.
Hi, Wednesday. Thanks for having me. It's my pleasure to be here.
Cool. Well, we tend to start out by asking guests to tell us the story of the first horror movie that they remember seeing. It's such a good icebreaker. So
Sure.
Let's hear it.
The first horror movie. Well, I have a weird history with horror, actually, considering what I'm doing now with my life. Because when I was a kid, I was one of those really squeamish, kind of like, I'm a little bit afraid of everything kind of kids.
Okay.
So it took me a while to come around. But I think back to like those formative years, and honestly, there are a lot of things that laid the foundation. Like my dad was watching The Twilight Zone and Alfred Hitchcock Presents and all these old, anthology series that I think really fired up my imagination, in when I was kind of before I really started to think about creating it myself. And then when I became a teenager, of course, my friends were into horror and things, and we were watching like Friday the 13th. And this was like, classic slasher kind of era. And I remember I couldn't handle like some of the gore and things at the time. And at some point in my teenage years, there was this moment where I thought about like the mastery of art that it took to make these things, like the artifice of filmmaking, of storytelling, of whatever. Of video games, programming, anything like that. And I remember making a conscious decision going, I don't think I'm going to be afraid anymore. I think if I'm of the darkness can't hurt me. So I'm going to learn how to create it and control it and be a part of that. And it sounds ridiculous, but it worked. Like whatever mental trick that did for me, it's like, oh yeah, no, I'm going to be a creature of the night as opposed to the thing that's being hunted,
Dude, I don't think that sounds ridiculous at all. In fact, I believe that is Tom Savini's story as well.
Really?
The great makeup artist. Yeah, he because he was in the war. He was in Vietnam.
Sure.
And saw terrible things. And I don't know that he has described himself as having PTSD, but it seems a reasonable conclusion to draw. And that is how he talks about just getting a handle on horror and controlling it, because
Sure.
You're absolutely right. Once you're part of the thing and you have control over its like what we're seeing, that's power, man. Like
Absolutely.
all the people that read horror as kids, or the people like I read a lot of true crime as a kid. I was considered a very weird kid because I think I was maybe 10 when I picked up Helter Skelter. And I was reading, Stephen King and the Hillside Stranglers. That was a big read at the time. Everybody wanted to know about those dudes.
Oh, wow.
And it just felt like, well, knowledge is power. And if I have an understanding of these things, that will help me in life. Of course,
Absolutely.
Now everybody wants to know about serial killers, and it's people's like relaxation viewing. But back in the day, I assure you, people said we were weird.
Oh, for sure. And the resilience that you develop being the weird kid Like, I think that contributes to some success too, especially if you become a content creator of like, boundary pushing things or difficult and challenging topics.
Yeah, I mean, I think that there are a lot of things that come from, being a weirdo, being bullied,
Hmm.
being straight up abused. You
Hmm.
develop skills from that.
Hmm.
And on the one hand, I think it's cool to acknowledge that. And on the other, I kind of hate it
Yeah.
because it gives assholes an out.
Right.
Like, well, see, me
Like
treating you
we've
like garbage for your entire childhood was
right.
so good for you.
It's like we've developed
Oh,
the worst superpower. It's like our origin stories just
man.
suck. Like the powers are cool, but oh my god, the origin story's terrible.
Well, and some of those skills aren't even great skills. Like,
Right.
I could spot the red flags in my friend's new boyfriends by the second
Right.
date,
Right.
and they don't want to hear that. That
No, no.
early. Like, oh, so he called his mom. So what? Dude, it was during sex.
Yeah. That might be a bit of a flag. Just saying, just,
Right?
something to watch, something to keep an eye on.
No, no, it's my keen eye. Only I would have noticed. So what were you reading as a kid?
I think one of the first big ones that I remember in my head was Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark. And I
Okay.
know
Yep.
that's a formative thing for so many people in the horror
Hmm.
industry. But, it wasn't so much the stories that I remember as the illustrations. Stephen Gammell's like original illustrations in that book were so scary and hung on like a nightmare. Like they had these
Hmm.
these wonderful surreal qualities to them. And I remember being fascinated by stuff like that. And I think that gave me a sensibility of like, there was some part of me, even in the scary days, that like liked the creepy stuff. And then I was also really obsessed with things like Greek mythology, um, Greek and Egyptian, like a lot of the myths, gods, and monsters. Um, back then I was being dragged to church every week by my folks, and I remember when I got real bored and the only reading material available was the Christian Bible, I was reading the heck out of Revelation because it's like, man, there's like dragons and stuff in here. These dudes with
That's the
cool
good part,
horses,
right?
like so. Yeah, I think formative for me was kind of children's horror and also like classic mythology, monster stories, minotaurs and krakens and that. Um,
Well, and I mean, the thing about religious literature is that while it's fascinating, it's meant to like get your attention and then get you to do things or
mhm.
think very specific things. So there is a lot of horror in that.
Yeah,
They
for
tried
sure.
to raise me Catholic and it didn't go well. And I just remember them explaining to us about the Eucharist, and a
Mhm.
kid in my class just stopped everything and said, if we love Jesus, why are we eating him?
That's a good question.
Like, yeah, well, maybe don't introduce 10-year-olds to ritualized cannibalism.
Right?
Mhm.
Well, and yeah, no, and a lot of the imagery, not only like cannibalism, but I remember being like the Four Horsemen of the Apocalypse were an absolute obsession for me. And is it any wonder that I ended up writing, the last 5 minutes of the human race? Because it's like the idea of eschatology and the end of things and all the symbolism and chaos that come from that. It's fascinating storytelling stuff. I mean, that's a rich tapestry of ideas and images.
Well, and even like the Greek gods, because
Hmm.
they are or the Romans is pretty much the same, but they were
Right.
always getting up to like terrible things. They were
Yes.
petty and jealous and serially unfaithful.
Yes.
And well,
Just
and
gonna
it's
pop
just
down
so
to earth, turn myself into a goose for a minute and, sexually assault somebody. Because, that's what we do here in Greece on Olympus.
well. Yeah, goodness knows here in America, we'd never put a sexual predator in charge
No,
of
never.
anything, let alone worship them. So,
Dear God.
ahem.
Ahem.
But I digress. So, okay, so you write Bizarro horror. Now, let's pretend that I don't know what that is or how
Sure.
it differs from regular horror. Clue
Sure.
me in.
So to me, I've been around the Bizarro scene for a long time, and I feel like, after a decade or so in a scene, you kind of earn the ability to define it as you see fit. And for me, It's actually an idea that you should expand the umbrella as far as genre tropes and things go. To me,
Mm.
Bizarro is the genre of the genreless. In a lot of ways, it's people who like to take genre tropes and screw with them, like break down the walls between genres or play with the idea that's like, well, this is too funny for horror. Well, that's okay. This is a spaghetti Western, but it takes place underwater with a bunch of, I don't know, toaster people. And that's fine. Like, but, you're still essentially telling the story. And the idea behind Bizarro to me is to get to that purity of storytelling we had when we were kids, where it's like, okay, I'm playing with my Masters of the Universe, and I know He-Man can't fly, but in this particular adventure, he needs to be at the top of Castle Grayskull right now. So right now he can fly. Like, because I'm telling the story. It doesn't matter if it could happen or couldn't happen or whether it's canon or anything like that. I'm telling the story. So right now, He-Man's going to fly up here because he's needed for the next scene. And I think Bizarro fiction does that a lot too, where it's like, what's the core of the story I'm telling here? I'm not going to worry about, well, that's unlikely or this is too silly. It's just a purity of storytelling that's like, this is fun. This is how the story goes. Sit back, buckle up, and don't allow yourself to be penned in by the genre tropes, I guess.
Okay. All right.
That to me is kind of the core of Bizarro. It's weird at its core, no matter what. I guess the common denominator is it's weird. But I feel like there's a purity to that where you're not worried about what you should be doing. You're just doing what serves the story best.
And this is kind of a weird example. I don't know how well you know the Sharknado movies. I'm discussing this in terms of movies rather than books, just for the sake of, people
Sure.
having more experience with them.
Mm-hmm.
The first 4 Sharknado movies, which were written by Thunder Levin, they're really funny. Like, the first one isn't as funny, but the first, like, they get progressively funnier. But the later movies, the later 2, are they're just weird. It's just like, it's like they're trying to think of the craziest thing they can do.
Sure.
But it isn't funny and witty. Frankie Muniz getting sucked out of an airplane and eaten by a shark, that is hilarious.
It is.
Ben Franklin just showing up for no reason and saying, and it's Leslie Jordan. So, like, that's delightful.
That's
you would
amazing.
think Leslie Jordan as Ben Franklin would be delightful. And here's me, in my recliner, watching it and not being delighted. I mean, that's not fair. That's not right. And the thing is, I was so poised to be delighted. The fact that I wasn't means that, I'm sorry, those writers failed.
Sure.
So whoever was writing Sharknado movies after Thunder Levin left, y'all failed.
Yeah.
And
well, and it's funny too, because like in Bizarro, of course, we don't own the term. I'm talking about the community that surrounds like the original couple of presses that started it and the Portland scene and all that stuff out west. We don't own the term, but I do notice that once in a while someone will pop up and they'll sort of claim like, I'm Bizarro and Bizarro is this. And a lot of times when you see those books come out, they're very derivative of kind of the original wave of Bizarro, like Carlton Mellick and people like that kind of started it. And it's like, I think it's kind of like when the fandom starts to write the series, kind of like what happened to The Simpsons, where you've got like the original, like the golden years, seasons like 3 through 9 or so. After that, fans of that started to write it. And that's okay, but it lost some of the initial sort of magic because I think the innovation and the freshness and the rawness of it disappeared. And then you've got people trying to kind of copy that. And I wonder if that's not what happens with stuff like Sharknado, where they're like, oh, look how goofy it got. It got crazy and goofy. And what's the weirdest thing we can do? But it's somehow maybe missing like the core or the heart of it.
Yeah, I think that's really accurate, because if I could take it back to movies again, the Friday the 13th movies, or really any slasher franchise, you start out with someone who's probably essentially human. And one of the changes that happens over time is that people like Michael Myers and Jason Voorhees have to have supernatural elements, because it's like, my God, 57 camp counselors are trying to kill this guy and he's still friggin' here.
How many
But the thing
shotguns to
is,
the face can this guy take? I mean, really?
but in
2 or
Friday the
3 at
13th,
most,
I
you know?
mean, they end up getting so innovative. I
Yeah.
will tell you that I think Jason Takes Manhattan and Jason Goes to Hell.
Mhm.
Jason Goes to Hell is brilliant. I I honestly, I'm embarrassed because I'm a writer and I don't know who wrote it, but
Mhm.
I need to meet the person who said, okay, here's what we're going to do. Because, I mean, let's start by killing him for real. We're
Right.
really going to kill Jason Voorhees. And then guess what? His spirit is just going to jump from person to person. Like,
Is that when
I
they
can't
brought in
believe it.
Roy? You'll have to remind me. Is that when
Roy was, well, no, Roy was earlier on.
that was
Roy is
earlier? Okay, okay.
because that's 5. That's the
Oh,
second
okay.
Friday the 13th where the killer is not Jason.
I got a little sad when
So
they brought in Roy. That's all I remember.
it's 1, 5, and 9. Well, I mean, the thing about Roy is that, first of all, you've got your Tommy Jarvis, which is a character that I think they really tried to build and then didn't know what to do with.
Didn't know. Right.
It's like, how do you start out being Corey Feldman and then you go downhill? That doesn't seem
That's a difficult path to follow, I would say.
fair. Burn on you, Corey. But
Heyo. Well, if Corey Feldman was a fan of Michael Allen Rose, he's not anymore. Now I can never
Right.
call the 1-900-COREY hotline again.
Glory, story, allegory for all the Simpsons fans.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm actually not, I don't consider myself a Simpsons fan anymore. Although I was pretty religious about the first, say, 25, 26 years.
Sure.
I think the way that Fox treated Alf Clausen is pretty disrespectful. Because, I mean, he scored the show for, decades. And I realize that fans don't necessarily think of the score as a character,
Yeah.
but theater people do, musicians do. Like,
Hell, and in certain
Clausen-
shows, certain shows are so musically inclined, and a lot of modern animation. Like I think of like one of my favorite animated shows these days is Bob's Burgers, and that show is so propped up by musical stuff. Like they're such a musically oriented, the voice cast and the producers of that show and everything. It's so yeah. The Simpsons was similar, where for a long time the score, and to some degree too, like the original songs they wrote and things like that, were so strong and such an important part. And if you go back to the very, very early Simpsons where they weren't really scoring much yet, it's jarring.
Yep. Yes. Yeah, I mean, honestly, watch any episode from season 7, which is probably the best season. Watch it without the music. It's a completely different show, and it's
very weird.
just not as good. And so Alf Clausen, he got older, he got ill and wasn't able to travel, and said, "Hey, can you guys build me a studio in my home so that I can just work here?" And that, in my opinion, that's a disability accommodation. There's like no reason not to do it. They didn't do it.
Absolutely.
And he wasn't able to work anymore. He took retirement when he didn't want to. And they brought in somebody else who is, I'm sorry, just not as good.
Yeah, that is sad. And that would be a reasonable accommodation under ADA. Like that would make sense, especially if it's somebody that's been with the show for that long and is such an integral part of its creation. Like it just makes sense. But
yeah, and I
don't know.
just kind of
There's
lost
a lot of capitalism that
love.
doesn't make sense to me, so I don't know.
Oh, please. Well, and that's, we could talk all day about like why art and products are not, they shouldn't be the same.
Yeah.
That's the whole, like, I mean, National Endowment for the Arts just sounds like a ridiculous phrase now when it's like, okay, he just threatened to not fund the University of Michigan if they don't hurt trans kids. So I don't know if you heard, I just found out this morning, actually, that the University of Michigan Hospital, which is like one of the best teaching hospitals in the world, is not providing gender affirming care for children.
Oh my gosh.
And I'm just fucking horrified. I can't even get over it. And the thing is, I'm just so appalled by the cowardice of it. How everybody is just laying down for these fucking fascists.
Yep. Well, and I'm still reeling from the whole let's purge the Smithsonian of anything that makes us sad. Like,
Well,
it's
and at first they said that it was just a delay, that they were gonna, they took out information for like a reorganizing, but it's all going back. It's all going back. We're not
right.
gonna forget about slavery.
Mm-hmm.
And no, that was a lie. It's all getting worse.
What a ridiculous world we live in. I think that's why I make art.
Well, that's kind of the point here, is like art as a coping tool, as a strategy to maintain your ethics, your morals, and also to express yourself.
Yeah,
in
to
ways
maintain your willingness to live. In some ways, I mean, honestly, it's that's
well.
I don't need
Today,
to tell the host of the Mentally Oddcast that, but
Well, no, it's interesting because today, it's August 27th when we're recording. It'll be 2 weeks from now or so when this goes live. But today is actually my life-anniversary day. It's my third life-anniversary because 3 years ago today, my husband came home from work and he could not wake me up. And my blood sugar was down in the 30s. And I was, my heart, they call it heart failure, but it was at 83%. You got to be some kind of tiger mom to call 83% of failure, but that is what they called it.
I mean, that's a B. Come on.
Right. Exactly. I've always been a B+ person.
See,
I never
there you
wanted
go.
to be at the
your
top
heart
of the class.
included. Yeah.
But, because, from time to time, we'll get sad. I'm intermittently suicidal, have been since I was a teenager. Many of our guests talk about that kind of thing and how not just like making art, but how art saves us. Like I could point to a very specific evening when I had just ruined us financially because I had some kind of issue with a client and he charged us back for almost $5,000.
Oh my
which
God.
for us was ruinous.
Sure.
And I was sitting up thinking, okay, I have to decide whether my husband would want to come home and find out that we're financially ruined or come home to find me dead and know that he could have my life insurance.
That was a
and
hell
I
of a
thought
decision.
about it and I thought, right? Over not even, because, I have friends that would laugh at that much money being ruined. Like not at us, but just the idea of like, well, it's only that much money.
Right.
But what I ended up doing was I put on a movie. I put on Stranger Than Fiction with Will Ferrell. And then I watched it again. And then I put it on again. And I watched that movie over and over again all night until my husband got home.
Wow.
And I asked him what he would prefer. And he's, and, yeah.
I have a guess.
Well, and I mean, I wouldn't wish being in love with me on my bullshit. I can't imagine, like, I suck as I'm like, I get suicidal probably every other year. I go through why am I alive? What is this for? Why do all my projects fail?
Yeah.
Like I check my book numbers and it's like, what am I doing? But, then somebody said to me, well, don't you want to outlive Donald Trump?
Oh, God, yes.
Said, holy fucking shit. Yes, that's it.
You want to be at that party, don't you? Yeah.
That's the one.
Absolutely.
Well, and it's so funny because, James Dobson died and my parents weren't even religious. And I was just like, I want to celebrate along with everyone else because F that guy.
Absolutely. No, I think, that's something too. And, I have a history with depression and I've occasionally had, I guess, what I would consider suicidal ideation. And, it used to be kind of one of those, like, I'd get through it or whatever, but I would kind of go like, where does art fit into that? Or like, the classic, like, what am I doing with my life and all that other stuff. And I think I came to the conclusion a few years ago that I'm just like, in my 20s, I wanted success. And success to me in my 20s looked like I want to be a rock star. I want to have a best-selling book. I want, like there was this one magical thing that would click. And then suddenly I'm like, oh, that's success. There it is. I did it. Like there's just one goalpost and you pass it and you're fine. And I think,
Right.
we were done a disservice in the way we're raised, especially in the last, well, honestly, half a century here in America, where we have this pop culture idolization. And I was a teen in the 90s. Of course, I'm looking up at all these rock stars and stuff. And because of the way the media worked at the time, especially, we didn't have access to these people. This was before social media and things. We didn't know they had normal, regular lives and normal, regular problems. You just saw this golden city on a hill. It's like, wow, that's completely inaccessible to me, but what an amazing thing. If I could reach that golden city, that means success. And as I got older and, I'm in my 40s now, as I've started to meet some of my idols, like some of these rock stars I looked up to, or these big authors I looked up to, and realized that they're just people, and some of them are very nice people who also struggle with self-doubt and imposter syndrome and depression and everything else. I realized, success to me now is I'm still doing this. I'm still making art. I'm still making music and writing books and whatever. I haven't burned myself out. I'm not dead. And some people apparently like what I do. And that's like, that is success, you
Mm-hmm.
know? And that
Yeah.
really helps when I think when I'm really down and I'm like, what am I even doing? I'm just making cool stuff, and I'm going to make a bunch of cool stuff. And then someday I'll die, and hopefully I'll have made a bunch of cool stuff along the way, and that has to be the definition of success.
Yes. Yeah, very much so. Well, Jim Carrey has said that he wished that everyone had the opportunity to become rich and famous so that they could realize that that's not it.
Yeah.
That's not the thing.
Right.
And in terms of a project success, the way that I measure is the distance between what I was trying to do and what I actually did.
Sure.
But when you get older, what you're trying to do, like I said in the beginning, I want to have X number of sales, and I want to have,
Mhm.
I want to fill an auditorium of this size with people that want to hear me read. And the closer I got to those things, the more my goals changed,
Sure.
because those things just didn't seem very important. And I decided that I wanted to be respected by my peers. And
Yeah.
then at one point, I got to be in an anthology with Jack Ketchum.
That's awesome.
And that's what I said. I'm like,
Yeah.
well, I've arrived.
That's it,
Everybody,
yeah.
I'm here now. Um,
Well, and I think,
but
the thing we're not prepared for too is that the goalposts keep moving. Because when
yeah.
you have one of those successes, it's wonderful. And I am learning to stop and celebrate those things instead of immediately moving the goalposts forward.
Hmm.
Because we're artists. We're like sharks. We move forward or we die, right? Like, so
Yep.
we go, okay, I made this goal. That's amazing. Where's the next one? You're already looking at it. It's on the horizon. You have to, or I had this one success. Well, one could be a fluke. So now I have to do it again. And that's, I think, one of the things that we're not really prepared for, as young artists, and you kind of have to survive long enough to realize yourself is like, oh, it's never over. There's not a moment where you know that you've made it, you've done it, and you're done. You dedicate your life to making stuff, to creating art or creating content or whatever, and you just keep doing that. And once in a while it works out, but there's no stopping point really, I think, for most of us.
Well, and it's interesting because the older I get, the more I think about that concept just in a general life way.
Mhm.
We'll say, like, yeah, and then they ended up marrying so and so, and that was it. Well, that's never it.
Right. Like, that's the end of
Because,
the story? Are you sure?
well, right. Because when we tell stories like Disney in particular, we all grew up watching Disney movies
Yeah.
where most of the girls' stories end with them getting married,
Mhm.
and most of the boys' stories, not all, but the boys become king.
Mhm.
Like, really?
Mhm.
That's and,
You think about it, like, from a historical perspective, that's probably when life starts to get interesting. That's really the beginning of the story, honestly.
mhm, yep. Well, I don't have any kids, but I'm told that they change you a lot, and they change your goals, and they change what you think is important, and the things that I mean, I have to think that kids change you a lot just because of what we've heard from Snoop Dogg this week.
Oh my god. Yeah,
Like, I'm
Snoop,
sorry,
he has
Mr.
disappointed me. I'm a big Snoop booster, but man, some of the things that come out of his mouth these days, I'm just like, you've turned into a cantankerous old man. I didn't think that would happen to you, Snoop.
Well, to say something like, how do I explain this to my grandkids?
Right.
Like, can't you just tell them you got bitches in the living room getting it on and they ain't
Ex-
leaving till 6 in the morning?
exactly. So you
Oh,
had no
no?
problem rapping about like smoking dope and banging and whatever. But hey, those two people of the same gender presentation might like each other. That was difficult for you. Like that was the concept where you're like, I don't
Well, and
understand.
I
Come on,
think
man.
I've figured out why.
Oh yeah.
I think that what I've figured out is that when people say, how do I explain lesbianism to my children? It's because they only think of lesbians as being sexualized. And that's
Sure.
true, like, of any gay people. So they're
Sure.
not saying, how do I explain to my children that two people are in love with each other? They're thinking about, like, anal and scissoring and
Yeah.
stuff. Like,
How
that,
how do
like,
I
no, you
explain
probably don't need to say that to
how
your
do I explain the plot of Sorority Sluts 3 to my grandchildren? Like you don't
pretty
have to,
much.
man.
Yeah, it's like, okay, but that's the thing, and they don't do that with heterosexual couples.
No, no.
When you tell your kids, like, "Oh, daddy's getting remarried," you don't have to tell them about, like, wedding night blowjobs. You
No,
can just
you
say
don't.
that they're getting married with,
In fact,
in an age-appropriate way.
right. In fact, I'm going to go out on a limb right here on this podcast, and I'm going to publicly state I don't think you should. I know it's a controversial, stance to take, but I don't think you should have to talk to your children about your wedding night blowjob.
Well, I guess it depends on how low they lower the age of consent, isn't it?
Oh,
Because
dear
the
God.
Republicans wanna make it 14 or
We
some
just keep
bullshit.
coming back to politics. God, what a world we live in. Ah,
Well, because it's everywhere,
I
man, that's
know.
the
It's
thing.
pervasive.
When people used to say, "I don't wanna talk about politics," they
Mhm.
were talking about, like, tax rates and foreign
Yeah.
policy and, now it's like, "Hey, is that trans person gonna be thrown in
Yep.
jail if they see a doctor?"
Right.
You
We're
know?
in unprecedented times, and who was it? Like the surrealists, I think it was, that came up with the "May you live in interesting times" quote. And
Yeah,
and people
yeah,
people who haven't done much reading think that's like, oh, that sounds good. No, that was a curse. You don't want to live in
yes.
interesting times. We are doing that right now, and it's terrible. I miss simplicity sometimes.
I like when I didn't have to know the names of everyone in the cabinet.
Yeah.
I shouldn't. I mean, yeah, I have a mail order business.
Hmm.
Why do I need to know the name of the postmaster general?
Right.
Because he's an asshole who's fucking
Right.
everything up.
Right.
Well, I have to know it. I shouldn't know that, like, I shouldn't have to know who Stephen Miller is. I shouldn't
Right.
have to know that one of Don Jr.'s hunting buddies is making decisions at the FDA. Like,
Well, you
I
look
don't
back
what?
you look back in history at like why we invented civilization in the first place, right? Like why primitive humans came together and went, "Hey, we work better as a society." Well, we created governance so that we wouldn't constantly have to worry about stuff. I mean, on a base level. So it's really doing the opposite of what we kind of invented it for at this point.
Yeah.
Like it's making everyone's lives arguably worse all the time. It's like, I think that's doing the opposite. I think somewhere along the line we got it twisted.
Well, and that's always the argument when I hear from people that say, "Oh, why should my tax dollars go to this or that?"
Mm-hmm.
And I just say, "Dude, do you wanna live in a society or not?
Right. Right.
Because if
Exactly.
you don't, you don't have to." I mean, I think if someone wants to be in America, but they
Mm-hmm.
really don't wanna pay taxes, fine. Go somewhere where there are no roads, where
Yeah.
there is no mail,
We
no
got lots of
electricity,
woods.
grow
Just
your
pick
own
some.
food,
Yeah.
and yeah, by all means,
Pick
shoot
some woods
some
somewhere. It'll be great. Let's have a great time. Go off grid.
you yeah. Like, if that's honestly what you wanna do, we'll even credit you the free taxpayer-funded education
Yeah.
and all the medical research that help you grow to the age that you are now.
Right.
We'll
That
just
was on
let you have
us.
all that. You're welcome
You're
to the
welcome.
JD Vance. Aren't you gonna thank us?
Right.
So let me ask you this.
Yeah.
A lot of the guests on my show are people that I know or
Mhm.
people that I've talked to online for a really long time. You are neither of those things. So what
Aha.
made you wanna come here?
So a couple of things. Well, one is I just like to talk to people. Like, I have fun on podcasts. I have fun being interviewed. I have fun on panels because it's fun to talk about this stuff. It's fun to talk about process. It's fun to talk about where our ideas come from and things. And I don't remember exactly where I came across the Mentally Oddcast, but as soon as I did, I reached out. I think when I reached out to you, it was the same day because I was looking at this and I'm just like, man, this sounds custom built for me. I'm an open book. I love talking about my own issues and whatever. Like I very few secrets. I'm not a private person. I'm not a tentative introvert. I'm just like, yeah, let's talk about stuff. Bring it on. So I think that appealed to me. And the fact that I was looking at your guest list, I'm just like, well, these are all like multi-threat content, creators. These are people who do a variety of things. And that's my thing. I mean, like, for better or for worse, I don't know if this helps me with sales and things, but eclecticism is my brand. It always has been. Like, I do some comedy here and some horror here and this crazy writing experiment here. And now I'm going to work on an album and now I've got a play that I'm producing. And, I'm not saying I do any of those things particularly well necessarily. I just do a lot of stuff. I like to follow the creative impulse wherever it goes, which I think is what people should do more. It's like, don't pen yourself in and say, well, I'm a poet, so I can only write poetry. Well, you're a poet, but maybe you had an idea for a painting or a photo shoot or a one-man show or whatever. Like, do that. See what happens, So I think the eclecticism and the fact that you like to talk with people about like the very real core of what it is to be a person in the world and to be an artist in the world. And like that really appealed to me.
Cool. Well, that's great to hear. Because
You're doing the Lord's work.
Let's not be specific about which Lord. Okay?
Hey, Lord, any Lord, pick a Lord.
Lord Farquaad.
Yeah, maybe.
Well, because I don't talk about like my own personal religion very much. I'm a humanist. I'm just a regular old humanist. And financially, I support Satanic Temple. Not a lot. $6.66 a month is the Patreon.
That seems right.
Right. But yeah, I actually think one of the reasons that I do this is because I want to encourage absolutely everyone to cope with art, the arts in general, whether you are just doodling and then it becomes something you want to keep. And also that it's art for art's sake.
Sure.
Art that like everything doesn't have to be a hustle. Everything doesn't have to make you money. It doesn't have to be an income stream.
Right.
Because getting what's on your mind out of your mind, out of it so that it's not just eating you up inside is so valuable. If I had a lot of money, if I could get a grant, one thing that I would do is I would go to low-income places like Ypsi and Detroit and Flint and places where people are really struggling and just teach kids art, like how to tell a story. And it doesn't have to be about you, but write a story about something that made you mad. Paint a painting of how you feel today.
For sure.
And just find ways to bring it out of people.
Well, I think you're hitting on something really important, and it's one of the things that I get to occasionally do my day job is in a library. I work in a public library, and I am lucky enough to work in a public library where even as a library assistant, as a part-timer, they give me some leverage to like create programming and things like that. And we started doing a zines and chapbooks workshop, my friend Jericho and I last year, and not only for just kids, but the idea behind me wanting to do it in the first place was like, there are a lot of people out there who don't have access to media representation, don't have access to any real platform, but they have something to say or they want to create something. They have an idea inside themselves that they want to express, and they don't know that they have a platform or a way to do that. So just teaching people, as you say, like that here's an option for you, that you can create something, that you have a platform, that your ideas are valid, that you have the right to artistically express yourself, even if I don't necessarily agree with what you're expressing. Like just to give people those tools is so important. And especially people with like in low income areas and poverty, things like that, they don't know that they have any option, but they do, and so much of that comes through the arts. So 100%, I'm with you on that. Like it's so important to give people a voice and to let people know that they even have the possibility of creating something.
Yeah. Well, and you know what? I'm going to say something here, and I think some people won't like it,
Hmm.
but I think that that is particularly important for men and boys
Yeah.
because men and boys are openly, actively discouraged. That's like one
Yep.
of the worst things about toxic masculinity is that men aren't supposed to express themselves. And
100%.
when they do, it's through anger because it just comes busting out of them. But they can't
100%.
cry, they can't disagree, they can't say, "Hey, don't do that. That hurts me."
Oh yeah.
They aren't under toxic masculinity. They're not allowed to do any of those things.
a hundred
And then they
percent
blame
agree.
women for it. So
Yep.
that is that's something that I would love to really get into and address. I mean, even in, like, prison,
Hmm.
that seems like a no-brainer, and I know that there are prisoners there are prisons where they have, like, art programs, but
Yeah.
so much of that is going away because of for-profit prisons. They'd much rather
Right.
have the prisoners be, like, slaves
Yep.
than be and I know some people are offended when we call the for-profit prison system slavery, but it
Yeah.
is slavery because
Essentially, it is. I mean, you look at the basic building blocks of it, and that's what they're doing.
well,
I
when I
agree.
found out that prisoners were fighting the fires in California, they were making like $2 a day or some crazy thing, and they get like a
Yeah.
week of training. It's insane.
Yep.
It's like, okay, these are people, and we lose our basic humanity. And I think honestly that is part and parcel to losing our relationship with the arts. And that's one of the reasons I hate AI,
Hmm.
because the humanities are called that because the whole point is to express the human experience.
It's
Like,
right
that's
there
what
in the
that is.
word, people. No, I'm with you too. And the toxic masculinity thing too. Like I grew up in the middle of North Dakota. I grew up with fairly traditional conservative parents. I get along with my parents, but I have some complicated feelings about, certain things, obviously. And one of those things is growing up in the Dakotas in a rural area, conservative area. I was supposed to be into like sports and cars, and I wasn't. I was a weird kid. I got into theater and I was into like music and all this other just the weird stuff and
Are
read a
you
lot of
straight?
books. I am.
Oh,
I know it's
I think
crazy,
that's
but well, my queer friends tell me I'm a little queer. So I guess I'm at least a safe ally if nothing
Are
else,
you
but
even allowed to do theater if you're not a little queer? I
yeah,
don't Is
I
that
think it's
even
part
allowed?
of the it's part of the
I was a theater
requirements.
major, and,
Sure.
we
Yeah, yeah.
didn't really codify it that way, but
Right.
yeah.
But no, it's funny because it's like as an adult now that I'm finally comfortable with who I am and everything. Many many years it was like, I have to put on kind of an do I try to create this extra layer of masculinity so I don't get beat up or bullied or whatever it
Mhm.
was. Now I can kind of be who I want, and it's so funny because like one of the bands I'm in a Nine Inch Nails tribute band called Now I'm Nothing in the Chicagoland area. And we play out a lot and we do kind of the classic Nine Inch Nails look with the cornstarch and the leather and the, fishnets and everything else. Super hyper aggressive music and whatever. And in that band, it's such some of the nicest guys. And behind the scenes, we have tried to normalize saying that we love each other, that we like check on each other when we're going home from a gig to make sure we get home okay. Because I think all of us are like that stupid toxic masculinity that keep men from being close and keep them from being able to like express genuine care and friendship for each other is so stupid and so counterproductive. So I'd like to think
Yeah.
there are certain sectors where it's like, no, we're trying to normalize like having feelings as men, like like and being okay with expressing gentleness and I always think
To
about
people who aren't your primary partner,
yes,
because
exactly.
that's the only person that men will be, like, open or honest with, either
Right.
their moms when they're little or their
Yep.
girlfriend/wife when they grow up, and it puts so much pressure on that
Sure.
relationship.
Sure. Absolutely. Well, and I'm lucky in that um I've always made connections easier with women in my life, even since I was a kid, which, probably didn't help is that guy straight, when I was growing up and being a weird, sensitive kid who's hanging around the girls a lot. But I'm still like that. Like most of my best friends, I have some very good male friends, but most of my best friends are women. And I think I don't know where that came from, but I'm glad it happened because I think it gave me a slightly more nuanced, look into kind of gender politics and stuff as I was growing up in an environment that didn't really allow for that,
Sure, yeah. That makes sense.
I think so.
So on the pre-interview questionnaire, we
Yeah.
ask people about their diagnosis, and you actually describe yourself as having plain old run-of-the-mill depression with all the bells and whistles. So tell me, like, what does that mean?
Yeah.
How does that present for you?
So, yeah, I call it plain old run of the mill depression because so many people that I know have like a bipolar diagnosis or, there's comorbidities with all sorts of other things.
Mhm.
And I joke with those I'm close to, like my partner, for example. I'm like like hyper focus and like having like manic energy look like a superpower to me because I don't get that side of it. I just get the depressed side of it. So I'm either like normal and functioning or laying on the couch with my cat playing video games, not wanting to ever move again. Like there's no, I'm going to clean my house today, all of it twice. I never get
Oh,
that part.
dude. Dude,
Now,
that's not how it presents for everybody. I just wanna be clear.
no,
My
I know.
mania looks much more like, "I have had the best idea I've ever had, you guys. I need, like, $3,000
Oh,
because
yeah,
I'm
yeah.
about to be rich." You know, the
I'm
the
going to start 6
everything
businesses.
this is where it all turns
Yeah,
around, guys.
exactly. Exactly. But no, for the longest time, I went undiagnosed, as many of us do. And it wasn't until I was in graduate school, and this was in the mid zeros, where I kind of had this moment where I was in a relationship at the time, and I realized that I was able to step back for a minute and look objectively at this relationship because we'd been having some problems. And I realized that in certain ways I was being controlling and I was being jealous. And, I started to kind of like try to identify, well, where was that coming from? Why was I like feeling paranoid and things like that? And a lot of that stemmed from just general depression because I realized that when I'm going through those phases of severe depression, it's like, well, yeah, I don't feel like I'm worth anything. I feel like even the people who are claiming to love me, well, it's a joke. Or, oh, they must have fallen under the spell of a witch's curse, obviously, because, I'm not worth that. And
Have you
it,
ever had the, "I must be a sociopath because I've tricked everyone into thinking I'm a good person"?
you know, I I get that. But I don't think I ever felt that clever. I'm like, no,
And
no,
then your therapist will say, "Well, but if you were a sociopath, you would never ask whether or not you would. That's part of
right.
sociopathy." And then I would say, "Well, but I know that though. I know
Yeah,
that. So, see, that's just the level of my trickery. That's just how
yeah,
committed I am
exactly. That's
to
how good I am.
convincing people I'm a decent person."
No, I was very lucky in that I had that kind of those moments of self-reflection, and I got a little therapy and that was fine, and I got on meds. And for me, I'm one of those people that medication absolutely saved my life. I was very lucky in that I found meds that worked for me. And I have, the emotional memory of how I felt before I was medicated. And I'm like, I don't ever want to go back to that. Like, it's worked well enough for me to go, yeah, no, this is my new normal is okay. I am all right with this. Um, so I
And
was lucky, you know,
was that antidepressants or
yeah,
mood stabilizers?
antidepressants.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm a Zoloft guy.
Oh, all right.
Yeah, I love the little circle with the little frowny face on their commercials. He's
So it
so
sounds
cute.
like you got a diagnosis and that your first diagnosis was accurate.
Yeah,
That's fun.
it was, and I'm also the kind of nerd. I'm kind of a spreadsheet nerd. So when I went into my therapist with a spreadsheet that I'd created through self-reflection about what I thought my various problems were, that was a really good jumping off point for us. I'm
Okay.
like, well, I'm sort of possessive and controlling when I feel like this, and this is moments where, oh, and let's see, this is like super down and tired all the time over here. Well, this when this happened, I'm like, so I made a flow chart. Um, not because it was like important homework from a therapist, but because I'm that kind of a nerd where I'm like, I'm going to use some of my almost non-existent spare time in graduate school to sit down and make a flow chart about myself and what I think my diagnosis would be. So that helped a lot. They had a really good jumping off point to go, okay, so you feel like this, and this. I mean, we can do the questionnaire, but you kind of have more information on this than we'd get from that.
Well, that is so self-aware, and
I
that's
don't know. I don't mind being in a room by myself and thinking about stuff. So, it helps, I guess.
that is the wow. I mean, that's kind of amazing. So let me ask you this. So you were
Yeah.
diagnosed in graduate school.
Yeah.
Which means that you went all through school probably having depression impact you in various ways that you didn't see,
For sure.
right?
For sure.
So I guess in retrospect, do you think that there is knowledge that would have helped people recognize that earlier? Or maybe
Oh,
like
yeah.
if there were accommodations that would have helped you? Like, what
Yeah.
do you think would have helped at the time?
It's that's a really emotionally charged question too, because I think back sometimes, like we all do. I go, well, what advice could I go back in time and give myself at 16 or something like that?
Hmm.
That would have helped. And looking back, I think one of the biggest things, and I think this is probably impacted by the depression, is I was so naive for so long. I wasn't really socially apt. I didn't really know how to, get along with people. Like I was friendly. That's, I don't mean I was unfriendly or unlikable, but I was so scared of people bullying me, so scared of people making fun of me, targeting me, that a lot of my interactions were colored with that. So I look back now and I think about these moments where I was like, oh, that's when this person was bullying me or this person said something really cruel to me. And I'm trying to look at it objectively nowadays, many years later, going, I don't know that they had a cruel intention there. I don't think there was any malice in that. I think they just reacted and I took it as, oh, this is a personal attack.
Hmm.
This person is trying to hurt me. And usually succeeding because it was very easy to hurt me. I was really sensitive. And, looking back now, I'm like, I think a lot of that was depression. It really, really started in about middle school, as teenager years were coming on. And yeah, I went all through high school and college without a diagnosis. And I'm like, yeah, there were lots and lots of moments, even sometimes with friends, they'd say something and I would take it so personally and it would wound me so deeply. And I'm thinking back now and I'm like, I think it was just friendly teasing, but I couldn't see it as friendly. I couldn't see it as a normal interaction. I saw it as, oh my God, they're trying to hurt me.
Well, when you have depression, your fears have every chance of like just becoming your reality.
Yeah.
So instead of saying, I wonder if my partner thinks less of me because of this or that, you say, "Oh my god, I've ruined it. I've ruined
Yeah,
everything. It's all over with."
absolutely.
If a friend makes an errant comment, it doesn't occur to you to say, "Oh, haha, what a silly joke,"
Yep.
because you're too busy dealing with, "My god, everybody's looking at me. Everyone's laughing. What are they thinking? I need to leave. Why am I even here?"
Exactly. And I think on occasion, I still even struggle with that a little bit. Although I've curated this sort of persona. I'm loud and gregarious and fun, and I like to bring introverts out of their shells at conventions and things. I think some of that was curated partially as a defense mechanism against that, because if people are laughing with me and I'm the clown and I'm the fun one in the room and whatever, well, then they're happy. Then I know they're happy with me because they're not, if everything is too quiet and they're not laughing and they're not engaging, Maybe they're thinking about how much they hate me.
Yeah, maybe. Maybe they wish I would just leave.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Yep. And I think that that also comes out in like our relationships. And I think
Mm-hmm.
that's why it's so difficult to live with someone with depression. I,
Yeah.
I think I was probably 10 years into my relationship with my husband and still being like, he would say, all right, well, I'm going to go play video games for a while.
Mm-hmm.
Why? Why do you hate me? Why
Yeah.
don't you enjoy my company?
Yeah,
You
exactly.
know, like,
Oh my God, my
bitch, we've been
poor.
hanging out all day. I mean, he would never call me bitch, but
Yeah, my poor beloved partner. We have this wonderful relationship, but she has her own mental illnesses as well, and I know that sometimes we are the same person because what pulls us out of little arguments or whatever is the realization that it's like, oh, you understand exactly how I feel right now and how irrational it
yep.
is and how stupid it is, and I'm not going to leave you because you said some stupid joke about the dishes or something. I'm not going to I'm not about to break up with you after 12 years because you know because you folded a towel wrong. Like it's
Well, that's one of the eternal questions. Like, if you're neurodivergent, should your goal be to find a neurotypical person who can deal with you or another neurodivergent person who is messed up in the same way as you so that you can have a mutual understanding of each other? But then you've got two crazy people trying to work their shit out
right.
in the same space.
I think
So,
mileage may vary depending on the
right?
depending on the specific diagnosis, but yeah, that is the eternal question.
Right. So I looked over your info and you've actually won some awards and I want to talk about that.
Sure.
Awards are like not anywhere in my purview. It would never occur to me to submit myself for an award and I
Mhm.
don't know that anyone with any like say so has done that on my behalf. Do you find awards to be validating?
Well, in my case, I found there. So I received the Wonderland Awards, as you said in the opening. I
Mhm.
won 2021 for Jurassic Christ for Best Bizarro Novel, and 2022 Best Bizarro Collection for Last 5 Minutes of the Human Race. And in those cases, they were incredibly validating to me, partially because they're community awarded awards. They're not a juried award. They're something that the whole community votes on. And historically, as somebody famously once said when they won a Wonderland, sure, awards are a popularity contest, but who doesn't want to be popular? And what they were kind of pointing out is this is a community award. It's given to people not only for the quality of their work, but also because the community feels that they're a representative force for the Bizarro community in this case. So I think, depending on the award, it can be very meaningful if it's like in this case, it was, oh, Michael's been around forever. He's done the work. He's, uh, like puts in all of the support and other people and whatever. And he wrote this cool book. We can reward that effort by saying, hey, you're doing good. Here's a reward because this book was cool. And, to some degree, so are you. So I think those community awards to me are very validating because they kind of point to the fact that you've stuck around, done the work, and are doing good. Um, I suppose it's a little bit different from a juried award, but I will say that, yeah, I do find them validating in the same way that like a short story acceptance. If I get one of those, I find it validating, even if it's just that one person found it what they were looking for on that one day at that one time. Like that still counts, I think, when, it's like, okay, well, the jury found this work to be good on this day at this time. I think it's not the end all be all, but I do find it validating for sure.
Okay, cool. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense to me, actually. I think if I did win an award, it would just give me scorching imposter syndrome. It would because
In
the
this
thing is
case, it took it away a little bit for me because I think for the longest time it felt very impostery. But when your whole community comes together and says you're doing the thing, like I don't know, there's something about that that's like, oh, I'm seen in a way
yeah,
that
oh,
maybe
yeah,
I didn't know that I would be.
that makes total sense. See, an abuser voice in the back of my head constantly
Mhm.
telling me that I suck and I don't deserve anything, and if something
Sure.
good happens to me, that's kind of worse.
Yeah.
Like, if I fail, it's like, "Oh, well, of course you failed, you're a failing failure." But
Sure.
then if I succeed at something, it's like, "Oh, so now you think you're better than everybody else." Like, it's way worse. Because it's not just, like, reminding me that I'm a failure is one thing,
Yeah.
because like, I already know that. But
Yeah, yeah.
taking me down a few pegs when I feel good about myself, oh, my abuser was so into that.
Mm,
Because they had a kid really early and they didn't get to do anything with their life, and then they, blame the kid instead of the
sure.
people that made all those decisions.
Sure.
So,
Absolutely.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
No, I
Um,
can see that. I can see that being a thing for sure. Well, and I think I've come around because I imposter syndrome was very, very bad for me for the first. I mean, for the first quite a chunk of what I guess I would call my professional career. Because my first book was published in 2011, so I guess I've been at this on some professional level or so for over a decade now. And I would say for the first almost a decade, imposter syndrome was way high. Just phenomenally high. And it took until I started to get kind of, I don't know, there's a certain quantity of like acceptances of short stories, winning the Wonderland, getting enough stuff published by different presses, where I guess it took a certain amount of voices to start to overwhelm the voice of the imposter syndrome that had been so very loud for so long. And I think for me, it took a certain bulk of people to be like, oh, it's not just one or two people that like me or are pretending to like me. It's, you know, if this many people are pretending that I'm good, like not only is it the first real evidence of a real conspiracy theory I've seen, but what a dumb way to waste their time.
right?
But yeah, you know
Popularity of
what?
my book is like the moon landing. It's
Right.
all fake.
What really did it for me actually was, so you want to hear kind of a sweet story?
Yes.
This blew my mind. So, last summer, so I've had a couple of cool experiences, where it's like at a convention a couple of years ago in Texas, like somebody stopped me to get a book signed and stuff. I'm like, oh my God. Like, I'm like, are you looking at me or like over my shoulder? I'm like, am I supposed to give you a hug? But I remember
Do
that
you think
weekend,
I'm Joe Hill?
4 different people stopped me at this festival and asked me to sign something. I'm like, holy crap. Okay, that's cool. Somebody knows who I am. Wow. Which was amazing. But then last summer, after all of this, I'm like, okay, well, maybe I'm not complete crap, right? And we were going to visit my folks up in the Dakotas. So my partner and I are on this road trip. We're taking a big old road trip up from Chicago through South Dakota, up into North Dakota to see my folks and to see my half sister from Holland, who I hadn't seen in almost 20 years.
Oh,
Who
wow.
had come over to hang out with my dad for his birthday. And so it was like this big thing where I'm like, okay, I'm going to see friends. I'm going to see family. I'm getting away for a little romantic trip with my partner. Can I also make this some kind of professional development? So we were looking into that, and we were friendly with, there's a manager of a Barnes and Noble in South Dakota who orders indie horror stuff. So I reached out. I'm like, hey, we're going to drive through Sioux Falls. Could we maybe do a little event or something? And she was like, yeah, sure. We could set that up. So, I'm like, well, nobody knows who I am, and it's the middle of South Dakota. It's like the likelihood of anything coming of this is fairly small, but let's do it. It'll be fun. We'll do another, like a little bookstore in my old hometown, in Minot, North Dakota. We'll do this Barnes and Noble. We'll call it a little mini book tour, right? Just for
Mhm.
fun. So
Okay.
we get to this Barnes and Noble, and I'm sitting there, and they set up my little table, and they ordered some of my books. I'm like, this is cool. Like, I've never gotten to do a signing at a major retailer like this. And my partner Sauda is sitting next to me, and I'm like, yeah, I don't think anyone's going to show up just for me. Like I might get lucky and talk to some people, and maybe they'll buy a book. And she's like, well, yeah, but you know what? Just doing this is cool. Like you'll be able to say, hey, I did a signing at a Barnes and Noble. I'm like, oh yeah, you're right. That's something. Okay. So I'm looking at it a little more positively. And as we're sitting there, I'm getting to talk to people that come in, and I'm starting to sell a few books. And, you know, my luck has always been at the table. Like I'm goofy and I'm talkative and I like to chat with people. So I'm telling them about my crazy books, and I've got Jurassic there, as well as I have a noir book called Embry, about a chicken detective in a world of eggs. Uh, so I have
Wow.
those two books, and I'm telling people about these, you know, this goofiness, and I'm starting to sell books. And at one point, the manager comes up and she's like, "I just ran the numbers. I saw you've like sold like 13 books." I'm like, "Yeah, it's crazy. Like, it's going really well." So I'm having fun, and I'm like, "Well, this is good." So we're getting toward the end of the event, and I realize there's this kid standing nearby. It looks probably about like 14. I don't know, something like that, 13, 14. And his mom is standing there. And I kind of give him my, "Hey there, how you doing?" You know, spiel and whatever. And we're chatting a little bit. And she goes, "Yeah, he wanted to come over here." And I'm like, "Oh." And as I'm standing there, I realize, oh, okay, I think the kid is autistic. He's showing a lot of signs of autism here. Okay, that's cool. She's doing a lot of the speaking for him. That's fine. You know, he's having some trouble with eye contact and stuff, but I'm talking to him, and, you know, he'll mutter something here and there. And I realize he's holding a copy of Jurassic, but it's worn. It's not from the table. And I'm like, "Oh." And Sada kind of points this out to me, and she's like, "Hey, that's not." I'm like, "Oh my God, yeah." And I go, "Oh, so what brought you guys in today?" And his mom goes, "Well, we bought this book a month or two ago here in Sioux Falls, and he saw you were coming, so we drove an hour upstate here to come see you." And I'm like, "Oh my God. Okay, sure, of course. Will you sign it?" "Of course I'll sign it." You know, and I'm signing it. I'm like, "That's amazing." Like, this kid saw I was coming, and they're like, "We want to buy your other book too." I'm like, "Oh, sure, of course, I'll sign that too." And then he says something quietly to his mom. She's like, "Oh yeah, we need to buy one more copy of each of these because his best friend's birthday's coming up and he wanted to give his best friend your books." And I'm like, "Oh my God, that's amazing." So I'm feeling like super touched, right?
Yeah.
It gets better. And this is what Sauda has told me every time I get down on myself, every time I get real self-deprecating about my work, she's going to remind me of this kid. And I think it's probably okay. We'll call him Alex for the sake of this conversation. She'll be like,
Okay.
"Remember Alex?" I'll be like, "Okay." So we're chatting, and I'm like, "Yeah, of course I'll sign these things for you, whatever." So I'm talking with mom, and I say, "Well, what kind of books does Alex normally like to read?" And she goes, "He doesn't. This is the first book he's ever really loved." And I'm like, "What?" He's like, "Yeah, he's never really found a book he was that interested in." And I hear the kid go, "Yeah, it just sounded like an interesting premise." I'm like, "Oh." And I somehow, the little weird books that I write taught the joy of reading to a kid who's struggled with autism. Like, how insane is that?
Damn, dude, that is badass.
So talking earlier about like what does success mean, and when do you know, like, that right there, like, oh my God, like that. And that is whenever the imposter syndrome screams at me, Sada will be like, "Remember Alex?" I'm like, "Oh yeah."
Well,
Like,
you
I
made
did.
a tangible, lasting difference in the life of a human that you
how
did not
how
know.
cr- how crazy is that? Like,
That's it, man. That's
yeah,
that's the game. That's what it's
right.
about.
So that to me was like, that was the moment where I'm like, maybe the stuff I'm making does matter. It doesn't have to matter on a mass scale. Doesn't matter that I'm not hitting like New York Times bestseller lists or whatever. What matters is I made some art that resonated with somebody to such a huge degree that it made a real human difference in their life. And that's like amazing.
Yeah.
I'll never not get goosebumps when I talk about that.
Yeah. I would imagine so. That is awesome. That is awesome. So, like, on that note, I guess maybe it's not on that note, but it's
That's okay.
the note is you being inspiring, okay?
Oh,
Because the question is, what advice do you have for younger creators that struggle with depression,
Oh, sure.
Autism is often a part of that. I don't want to say
Sure.
always because,
Sure.
I'm not a doctor. I don't know the numbers.
Sure.
But I mean, I found out that I'm autistic like way late in life. It was like 2 years ago that a
Sure.
doctor was like, well, yeah, that seems obvious to me.
And suddenly
I
everything
can't
falls
officially
into
diagnose
place.
you, but yeah. Well, yeah. And I mean, aside from like feeling really angry because I should have been diagnosed when I was, 5 and
Sure.
not 50 something,
Sure.
um, and that like my whole life would have gone differently. Like I worked service jobs for like 20 years. An
Mhm.
autistic person who doesn't know they're autistic should not be anywhere near the service
For
industry.
sure. For sure.
No way. And yet, and that's the thing. The
Yeah.
whole time, it's like, why is this so hard for me? Other
Yeah.
people can do this. Why can't I do this? I'm not stupid. I'm not
Right.
lazy.
Right.
So why does anything ever work the way it's supposed to for me?
Right.
And that's why.
Yeah.
And it's
Absolutely.
like, and I had to almost die to figure
Jeez.
it out. And I mean, and then I think about like all the people that go through their whole lives with those pieces missing and they never get the help that they need.
Yep.
Like, how long has that happened through history? Which is why I get so mad when people are like, nobody had autism in my day. Like, yeah,
Yeah.
they did. They didn't
Yeah,
know what to
exactly.
call it.
There were a
And
bunch of undiagnosed people running around having harder lives than he needed to. That's
right,
what you're
right.
yeah, that's the part you didn't see.
And that's the whole point. It's not about making excuses for people. It's
Mhm.
about understanding what is happening with people so that everybody has a chance to be their best.
100%. Well, my
So what
my
about
advice, oh
yeah.
boy, coming off of that, you know what? I'll give the same advice whether you're suffering from depression, whether you're a just starting out writer. Like, I think the best piece of advice I could give is don't be an asshole. Be nice. Be kind. It's not hard to be kind. Um, find your people and make friends. It's just like we learned in kindergarten. You know, I've seen so many times where people, especially in like Bizarro and horror and some of the more extreme genres, they'll come out of nowhere and insist that they're like some sort of lone wolf. They're this badass edgelord. They don't need anybody, blah, blah, blah. Like that's their brand. And yeah, dude, that's just called being unlikable. And it always bears out that way. Because then it's like
Tell
they
it like it
alienate.
is, man. I'm
Yeah,
reading.
exactly. And they alienate everybody. And it's like, no, dude, make friends, be nice. I'm at this point, I'm in my 40s, but I'm still feel like I'm too old now to deal with assholes. I'm done dealing with assholes. I'm done. I want to deal with nice people, fun people, people who support each other, people who care, people who want to make art and collaborate and have fun. And over the long term, turns out I was right. Because, all through my 20s and 30s, I saw people surpassing me by taking shortcuts and stepping on other people and, like getting those short term gains. And I'm like, I don't think that's the way. Like, and sure enough, I would say probably 80% of those people I'm referencing either burned themselves out or they no longer do stuff because nobody really wants to work with them anyway. And they're just like these curmudgeonly, shut up assholes. And it's like, yeah, because you forgot that we are each other's best support. It's not us against each other. It's us against the world. A rising tide really does raise all ships.
Yep.
And
Yep.
like, I truly believe that and try to demonstrate that whenever I can, whatever I'm doing in the scene or in an organization or whatever. It's like, I truly believe in collaboration and kindness. So my biggest advice is don't think you can go it alone and be some kind of badass. Make friends, be nice, support each other's stuff. That's like the bottom line for me.
Oh yeah, yeah. I think that's a great philosophy. It really is. I do want to amend one thing though,
Sure.
because if you are a broken person, if
Mhm.
you are hurting and have unacknowledged issues, it's not always easy to be kind.
Sure.
And that's actually a good barometer for whether or not you need help, whether or not you need therapy, whether or not you need to reevaluate, maybe even think about medication. Because if it's your intention to be a kind and decent person, but you find that your behavior does not always reflect that, man, you don't know me from the internet, but I can be a real serious, sarcastic, smug bitch on the
Mhm.
internet talking to MAGA people and whatnot.
Sure.
I am not always as nice or kind as I wish I was.
Sure.
So just a little caveat there, because it's free to be kind. It doesn't cost you anything monetarily, usually.
Usually.
Unless you're
No, I think,
well,
that's a good
depending
caveat
on where
too.
you hang out, because
Yeah.
there's this push against empathy now, that
Yeah.
like empathy can lead you into bad
Ugh.
things, and the toxic empathy and all this weird shit that mean people are talking about.
Mhm.
But yeah, like it can be hard to be kind. And that's why there are people that are deliberately fucking up the world right now. Because the more desperate people are, the more frightened they are, the more they lack resources for people that they love, the harder it is to be kind to each other, the harder
Sure.
it is to look at people and try to understand them. And you're right.
Sure.
The antidote to that is kindness. It's empathy. It's
Yeah.
seeing other people as people and expressing what you actually want to express in a way that is not hurtful. And again,
Right.
that brings us back to the humanities, back to the
Well,
earth.
and you know what? And your caveat is totally justified. And I'll even add one of my own. And I will say, remember too, that kindness doesn't necessarily equate to an inability to set boundaries or protect yourself. Because
Right.
I was often, I was talking about my naivete as a younger person. I was often taken advantage of because I was naive and just wanted everyone to be nice and, assumed good intentions. And some people will take advantage of that. So I have learned over time also that it's important to be able to build boundaries and protect yourself against those who would use cruelty to take advantage of your kindness.
Well, that's the
But
thing about bullies, man, is that bullies are the first people to tell you, hey, you got to have a sense of humor about yourself.
Mhm.
And there's a big difference between having a sense of humor about yourself and having to tolerate jeering and cruelty from
Yes.
assholes.
Absolutely. So I think, I guess my default is be kind, be nice, make friends, but also get help if you feel that you need it and you aren't being your best self, and be ready to protect yourself against cruel people who will take advantage of you.
Well, and that's another great reason to build community.
Mm-hmm.
Because I'll tell you, I was once accused of something bad that I did not do
Mm-hmm.
by someone in the horror community. And I honestly, this person is, they're a white male that's been in the biz for a long time, and I'm basically a nobody, and I can be kind of obnoxious. So I'm not everyone's friend.
Sure.
And I really was not sure if my reputation in the community could withstand that kind of accusation. And it did. It did. People that knew me were like, no, dude, of course we know you didn't do that.
Sure.
Like, okay. But not everyone did. Like there was someone that I was like forming a professional relationship with that just dropped me like a rock. Like, nope, I don't want any part of that. I don't care if you were accused. I don't want to be around it. I'm like, well, there's nothing I can do about that.
Right.
But it's also like, I mean, it's kind of none of my business, It's like, well, if that's what you think, I'm not going to spend any time whatsoever trying to change your mind.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. And you see it too all the time. Anybody who's online sees it all the time. There's always drama in writing circles, always somebody, he said, she saiding, always some controversy. And you know what? If it doesn't, that's another piece of advice. If it doesn't affect you, it might be wise to sit for a minute and decide whether your voice is really needed. Because so often people will jump in with crazy, like either pile-ons or their take on things or whatever. And it's like, was it necessary? Really? Because you weren't involved in any of this. And now someone else's dirty laundry is hanging on your line, and that's not a good look either.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it kind of depends because, obviously public figures, but that is one of the things that is true of the internet now. When something happens, everybody wants to share their opinion on it. And for a while, I like hearing everybody's opinion, but then it's like,
it
well,
used to be novel.
Pedophilia is bad. I think we're all on the same page. Oh, we're not. We're not all on the same page. Wow.
Well, it used
Didn't
to
see
be
that coming.
novel to be able to share opinions. It used to be
Yep.
an exciting new thing. And now it's like, oh, I've heard everyone's opinions about things and
Well,
I
I mean,
don't want to.
well, but it used to be exciting and novel to see what your favorite celebrities are having for dinner.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
honestly, I think sometimes it still is. You
Sometimes.
know? It's like, wow, that guy from Breaking Bad puts caviar on everything. That is wild.
Even ice cream. Crazy.
Well, they were putting it on donuts. I'm just like, I don't even know what to tell you guys.
I don't think I want a caviar donut now that I think about it.
I would like a lifestyle where that is an option.
Yeah.
Actually, that's not true. I just don't wanna have to save up to go to the dentist.
Yes.
That's the kind of
Amen.
lifestyle I want.
Yeah. I want the kind of lifestyle where I can like go to the doctor when I'm sick or not, do like advanced calculus when I'm going to take my girlfriend to dinner.
Right, right. Like,
I don't
okay,
know
my
if I can
TV
afford
just
to
broke.
eat.
Yeah. Well, I know one time my TV actually broke, and it was the first night of Shark Week.
Oh
And,
no.
first world problems and everything, but there was no way we could buy a new one, and this takes us back to Community, because I went online and I said, "What cruel fate is this? My TV is dead on the first night of Shark Week."
Oh, the
And
horror.
within 3 hours, 2 people were like, "Yeah, I can bring you a TV right now."
That's
And
awesome.
I had a TV in time for Shark Week. Well,
That's
because first of
amazing.
all, those big TVs that look like a box, from when we were
Hmm.
little,
The old
they're
CRT
a
ones.
dime
Yeah.
a dozen now.
Yeah. Yeah.
Everybody's got one just sitting in a spare room in case their flat screen goes out.
It's like a tiny end table in our guest room at this point. So yeah. No, I get you.
Yeah. So, we actually have a question in our questionnaire
Mhm.
because we want affirmative consent to ask guests about a time in their life when they were in legitimate fear for their life. And you indicated that you were okay with answering this question. So
Sure.
please tell us.
That was an interesting question too, because it made me think of, you know, situations where I was in some kind of danger or something. I don't often get into dangerous situations, but the first thing it made me think of, and maybe this is in the context of the rest of the questions, is, when my suicidal ideation has gotten to the point where I'm like, is this, am I actually kind of, how serious am I about this? And I do remember a couple of times like that. And I've always been able to pull myself out of it intellectually, because if emotionally I'm feeling very damaged and I don't have any emotional defenses left, a lot of times for me, it comes back around to using logic to sort of diffuse the bomb. So I'll think about, okay, well, if I did do this, that would be impulsive. And I don't do well with impulsive. I'm one of those people, and I think it's because like my dad was a yeller. I saw him, fly off the handle for no reason. So I developed internal mechanisms to be like, okay, well, anger is unproductive most of the time. So I'm going to be able to stop that train from, crashing into things. And I know it's not necessarily healthy, but we were talking earlier about the superpowers we develop. And one of mine is definitely being very emotionally in control of myself. So I think that's what always pulled me back from the brink, is going, well, this would be an emotional, impulsive thing to do. And if I think about it for half a second, there's lots and lots of reasons that this would be a bad idea. And it's funny that, we're talking about this because in that context, weirdly enough, so I just had a birthday, and for a couple years there, I was really having trouble with the concept of getting older because in part of my brain, I'm still in my 20s. My body
Mhm.
certainly doesn't
Oh,
feel
yeah.
that way. But I'm like, yeah, I'm still the goofy college, dork I was then or whatever, essentially. And, you know, I was having trouble with the aging thing until just the last year or two. I started to think about all the people who have died young, whether through suicide or through addiction or, a million other things, and all these rock stars and people that I looked up to, and how many of
Mhm.
them, didn't even get to 30.
Yep.
And I got to thinking, as much trouble as I'm having with the idea of getting older, it's so much better that I can still experience things. I can experience life. And I was an existentialist. Like I read a lot of Sartre and Camus and things in college, of course. And it's like the idea that there is no cosmic oneness that's guiding us or anything like that. We're a weird statistical anomaly on a ball of dirt flying through space. And I take weird comfort in that because I'm like, well, then all we are is the things that we do and how we perceive the world and the universe around us. And the fact that I can do that is such a statistical anomaly. I should really enjoy it while I've got it. So I I think it's like the fact that I have the ability to experience things, whether they're good or bad or happy or sad, is such an infinitesimally small chance of that happening. I should embrace that for as long as possible.
Nice.
I think that's what really, really keeps me motivated to just keep going.
Love it. Love everything about it. I actually have to tell you, since you just brought up Sartre, that my senior directing project, because I was a double major, broadcasting and theater, No Exit.
Oh God, I love No Exit. I love No Exit so much.
Yeah,
so much.
It was something else. Yeah, I
I
learned
was
a lot about myself.
a theater major too, by the way, in case we didn't talk about that.
Nice. Yeah, I figured.
Oh God, I love No Exit so much.
Yeah. It's a good one. So let me ask you this. How often does your emotional and mental state or just like the issue of depression, how often does that come up in your work?
It's hard to answer that. I think because I experience my work obviously so much differently from other people. But I think maybe it goes back to what I was saying earlier about being a comedian, being the funny guy is a self-defense kind of mechanism. I write a lot of funny stuff. Like even some of my more serious work will have moments of comedy, but a lot of my stuff, whether it's horror or sci-fi or bizarro, there's comedy elements in it. And I think comedy is so important to me because I don't know, it's special in a lot of ways, but one of the things is it's a defense mechanism. So I think you see less of my depression in my work and more of what I use to fight it, if that makes sense.
Yeah, very much so.
Yeah, I don't think you're not going to read my stuff and be like this Sylvia Plath sort of like, wow, this is I'm going to slit my wrists after I read this with the page and paper cut myself to death.
Just describe a look already. Gee.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, like I'm like, and I always think back, and it's cliche at this point, sadly, but like you look at Robin Williams and they often cite his suicidal ideation and depression when they talk about the old joke about, like the guy goes to the therapist and he's like, I'm depressed. And he's like, oh, you should see, this great clown. He's in town. And like, but doctor, I am that clown,
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, that's the thing, right? Like funny people are often hiding trauma and wounds. And I'm sure I'm no exception to that. But I like to think that I've come out the other side for most of it. And what's left is the ability to make people laugh and ideally that's doing something good that came from, the traumas that it was originally designed to combat.
You know what? I am actually being so rude right now because what you just said gave me an idea for a story and I had to write it down because now I want to explore Roger Rabbit's childhood trauma.
Oh my God. That sounds awesome.
Right? And that right there, that even said that. I don't want anyone to steal that idea.
No, that's Bizarro right there. And you know what? You just, as far as I'm concerned, you just claimed the idea. Like you did it publicly in broadcast form. And I'm saying that right there, that's a Bizarro pitch, man. That's That's
Yeah.
that's something of beauty.
My parents, when I was a little rabbit, they just
Yep.
couldn't stop breeding. Bred like rabbits. There were so
The
many of them. They were always hungry, always hungry. And after a while, it just made Dad angry. Um,
I like where this is going. This is good stuff.
right?
Give me the give
So,
me
so
the
hey,
seedy underbelly of Toontown, you know?
tell me about Jurassic Christ.
Absolutely. So Jurassic Christ is the story of the second coming of Jesus Christ, but because he is an extra spatial deity, time and space don't really apply to him. So on his way back, he misses and ends up in the Jurassic period fighting dinosaurs. So
Oh,
it's nonfiction. It's the one true gospel. No, it starts out and what's fun about it is it seems when I describe it to people, they think they know what they're getting into. And it's going to be, okay, so it's like Jesus Christ running through the jungle commando style with a machine gun fighting dinosaurs. Yeah, it starts that way. But then it goes to much weirder places, believe it or not. Like, he essentially discovers that the dinosaurs had a whole civilization going, and what we thought of them or thought about what we knew of them is completely wrong. Mammals, we were never supposed to make it this far. Somebody tweaked the settings on evolution and screwed things up because mammals were these disgusting creatures that were obsessed with basically made on TV or as seen on TV products. And somebody decided to put them on the top of the heap. So now he's got to get back to the metaverse to figure out who in this cosmic conspiracy has tweaked the settings and made things wrong.
all right. Who gave the humans gunpowder? That was not a good thing to do.
Exactly. So yeah, it goes from there on this. It becomes a space and time traveling romp through metaphysical and theological ideas, and it's I honestly one of the best reviews I got of that book was from a horror writer and sadly deceased now, Jay Wilburn, who was also a devout Christian and would really engage philosophically and theologically with people like in really cool ways. He was just the coolest guy. And he read Jurassic Christ through his lens, as a religious man, but also as a horror guy. He loved it. And he said, one of the best things I think anybody could have said about it, he said, you didn't punch down. Like, it's actually thoughtful. And it's not just like low-hanging fruit, religion's stupid. It wasn't that. It was like, I'm actually engaging with theology and philosophy and treating JC as sort of this rebel hero figure that we like to think he would have actually been.
Cool.
It's a fun
I love
story.
that. I love that because, like, I've done a few short stories, that deal in religion,
Mhm.
and I think that's so important that you're saying something more than like, I don't agree with Christianity or
Yeah,
look, there's hypocrisy in Christianity. Because first of all,
exactly.
it's just so fucking tired.
Yeah.
But to say something new and I actually have a spiritual advisor. He's a dude I went to college with, and he's
Mhm.
a Episcopalian minister.
Mhm.
And so whenever I'm talking about the Christian religion, I tend to talk to him about it instead of my husband, even though my husband's also a Christian,
Mhm.
because I want to make sure like I'm up. It should spark discussion, and
Yes.
it's cool with me if people disagree about it, but I never want to be disrespectful, and I want to make sure everything I'm saying is true. I don't want to
Right.
accuse people of having a theology that they do not have.
Right. Yeah,
You know,
my beloved Sauda, who I mentioned earlier, my partner, she was so instrumental in getting Jurassic Christ finished because she grew up being Lutheran on weekends and going to Catholic school during the week. So she had both sides of that particular debate, and she was basically my religious knowledge reader. So she'd be like, this would be way funnier if you mentioned, Nicaea or whatever, like just I don't know, whatever. Like it was so it was nice to have somebody who was armed correctly theologically to help me, tighten up the comedy. But yeah, it's a lot of my stuff you'll find Jurassic Christ being one example is I like a very silly high concept sort of goofy premise, but usually and this is at least according to people who've reviewed my stuff, I wouldn't know myself, but there's something seriously being said underneath that, like a lot of social satire I like to talk about. class and religion and politics and things, but couch that in comedy and ridiculousness, because I think it's like that's how you get past people's defenses that way.
Yeah.
Comedy punches viscerally. It hits your gut before it hits your brain, and then it's already inside,
Yep. Yep. Well, and I mean, people don't want to be preached at, but they
Right.
will take in a message if it's an entertaining time. And
Absolutely.
if people care about the characters. You'd think. I mean, it kind of weirds me out that there's so many MAGA boys that are Star Wars fans. Like, did you watch Andor? Because who do you think Andor is? He's
or
not
for
Trump.
that matter, listening to bands like Rage Against the Machine or Ministry. Like, when did they become woke? What? When? What? Maybe what?
Yeah,
what are you talking about? Did you ever read a lyric sheet? What?
Well, yeah, like I talked to somebody who had like just figured out what Born in the USA is about.
Oh, yes.
And that is like, well, why do they play it at MAGA things? I'm like, dude, I don't know.
They don't
I don't
get
think
it.
anybody knows.
They don't understand. The dude from do you remember the band Stained?
Uh-huh.
That dude he's gone weird MAGA now, and he's super mad at Bruce Springsteen about Born in the USA. And he had this whole screed about how like it was so ridiculous. Like, dude, were you not paying attention since? I mean, that song is older than your career, and now you're mad about it because you've swallowed the poop juice or whatever they're drinking over there.
It's ivermectin, right?
Oh, that's right. Bleach.
Yeah. Yeah. So we talked about this a little bit, but like the crossover between horror and comedy is something I feel really strongly about, obviously, because I'm the publisher of Sometimes Hilarious Horror Magazine.
Absolutely.
Because it's so, I think, very much like what you were saying. Like once you connect to someone with comedy, and it builds that trust between the reader and the author.
Well,
and one of the take anywhere.
One of the big drums that I beat over and over again is how comedy and horror have something in common that's very special as far as like types of storytelling go, because both of them hit you viscerally. So, you laugh at something, that's a gut reaction before you have a chance to process it. Or you're scared of something, you scream or you jump. That's a visceral reaction before you have a chance to process it. And if you can combine those two things, that's like magic. Really, the only real things that do that: horror, comedy, and sex. It's like you can scare somebody, you can make them laugh, or you can turn them on before their brains have a chance to really catch up. So if you can combine those things, and I think that's why, horror and comedy, such a wonderful connection. And then, of course, comedy and sex and horror and sex also have long histories of being married together, because if you can control those things and hit somebody right in the lizard brain, man, that's magic. Like we're doing real magic there,
Oh, yeah. Yes. So what is your favorite horror comedy?
Oh, gosh. I'll give you two. I'll give you a movie and I'll give you a book. I would say the movie, probably Tucker and Dale versus Evil.
Oh my God. I swear to you, I almost peed my pants the first time I saw it.
It's
when
so
that guy
wonderful.
Goes to the wood chipper,
God, it's so good. And they really get it, because they're doing what Bizarro does too. They're deconstructing the tropes. They're taking, they know the horror tropes. They're deconstructing them. They're taking them and turning them upside down or putting them backwards. And then, gives us that much more fodder for comedy. And that's just, it's such a brilliantly done movie. And I think it's one of the fun things about horror comedy. Some of the stuff that seems the dumbest on the surface is the smartest underneath that. Because the thing they're making fun of, the reason it looks dumb on the surface is they're making fun of a dumb trope, but they're doing it in a smart way. It's satire, not parody,
Well, South Park.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and then the book I would say is actually based on a movie. A few years ago, Jeff Strand, who is one of the absolute kings of horror comedy, did a a novelization of the movie Attack of the Killer
Attack of the Killer
Tomatoes.
Tomatoes. Yeah.
It's
I
amazing.
follow Jeff Strand, and
Oh yeah, that book
I
is so
figured.
much fun.
And it's so funny that, like, just the concept of, like, you know what needs a novelization is
Hmm.
Killer Tomatoes. Like, 'cause I love that movie as a kid.
Oh yeah. Well, and in the book, then he makes it even more meta. So it's like it's sort of a novelization, but it's also a meta novelization where he's talking about the fact that it's a novelization, and he goes into like, oh, it's a beautiful, again, deconstructing the tropes. Taking what
Yeah.
we think we know about how a genre works and completely fucking with it.
I have to say, I was introduced to that concept when I was a kid because of Norman Bridwell, who most people know from Clifford the Big Red Dog,
Oh,
but he wrote a book called How to Care for Your Monster, and it was like a
wow.
pet ownership manual, but the pets were the universal monsters.
Oh,
So it
that's
was a
cool.
werewolf, Frankenstein's monster, a vampire, and a mummy,
That's
and
very cool.
it was one of my favorite books as a kid. Um, and so that was my introduction to, like, "Hey, wait a minute. They're taking these things, but they're doing this thing with it. That's amazing." And
That's
then I had told
incredible.
my grandpa how much I liked it, and he told me about Abbott and Costello Meet Frankenstein. And that was something else that was, like, very digestible for me as a kid. Like, "Okay, I know why Abbott and Costello are funny, and look how scared they are, but I'm not scared with them. I'm, like, laughing at how scared they are." Like, it's totally different. So, yeah,
That's
that was
so
very
cool.
educational for me. Plus, we had a horror host in Detroit. We had Sir Graves Ghastly, who
Sir
would do,
Graves
like,
Ghastly. Ooh.
oh, yeah, he'd a man. I was, because later we had Count Scary, and he wasn't really as good. It's like, "Oh, he's trying," but, yeah,
Sure.
he's no Sir Graves.
Nothing's
Um,
like nothing like the originals, right?
indeed, indeed. So do you read, Christopher Moore?
Oh, yes. Yep. I love Christopher
Seems
Moore.
seems like
Um,
Gospel According to Biff would be right up your alley.
yeah, Lamb was that was my first Christopher Moore. I read Lamb and I
Oh,
was like,
okay.
I need more of this.
Yeah, mine was
um,
actually my first was The Stupidest Angel, and
okay,
then I
sure.
was like, "Okay, Pine Cove, I need to know what else is happening here," and it turned
Yeah.
out a lot was happening there.
When I get real goofy, I've been compared to Douglas Adams. I've been compared to Christopher Moore. Like
Nice.
when I get real silly, I get those comparisons sometimes, which is great because I'm like, yes, those are people who understood genre fiction and understood how to wring comedy out of genre fiction and use those tropes and those classic calls and things to be like, yeah, we can make fun of this. We can still love it. It can be a love letter to a genre, but you can also have fun while you're doing it.
Yep, yep, very much so. We're actually, we're kinda nearing the end of our time, so I wanna make sure that was there anything that you wanted to talk about we didn't get to? Now, I
You
know
know,
when we
I
first, arranged
yeah.
this, you were talking about a Kickstarter, and it took us a while to get this interview, done. So is your Kickstarter still going on?
Yeah, well, I'd love to talk about that. Actually, the
Please.
Kickstarter is over, but the thing it funded is just beginning. That's coming up.
Ah,
So I was able to start a little micro press last year called Rochambeau Publishing. We put out our first anthology last year called Fragile, which was it's 20 different stories, all started with the same prompt, which was a delivery person is helping move in a house. Everyone else has gone home for the day. They're finishing up their shift, dropping a box. They think they see the box move. They're like, that's none of my business. And then they think they see it move it again. And they're like, okay, well, maybe I have to deal with this. So they're going to flip a coin to see whether or not they should open this family's box that they're moving in because it's not in their purview, obviously. But they don't have a coin; they have a 20-sided die. And before thinking, they roll it, and each of those 20 outcomes is a different thing in that box and the aftermath thereof. So you've got all sorts of horror, bizarro, and other genre people tackling what's in the box and what happens next stories. So that was super fun. Um, and Rochambeau, the idea of Rochambeau for me was just very slowly, not coming out of the gate with a million books, just like doing a cool thing. And then next year, maybe we'll do another cool thing. Well, this year's cool thing is called Stories from the Motel Sick. And the Motel Sick is a place that I invented back in my very first published novella called Party Wolves in My Skull. That was on Eraserhead Press back in 2011. But there was a place in that book called the Motel Sick, which is one of those theme motels, where all the rooms are different themes. But every possible theme you could possibly think of exists somewhere in the metafictional Motel Sick. So we've got 18 different authors that have created their own room at the Motel Sick and created a story about what happens in it. We've got horror, bizarro, noir, sci-fi, crime fiction, erotica, everything. All the terrible things that could happen in a weird, seedy motel with none of the rules of physics or thermodynamics. It's so much fun. I'm so proud of this crazy anthology. We got some great authors. We got some big fish. We got some little gems, like hidden, your next favorite author kind of people. And it's very community oriented. Like everyone's in it together. Everyone was super helpful in trying to get the Kickstarter off the ground. We ended up 495% funded, which is crazy.
Dang, that's awesome.
It's nuts. So, of course, that's more work for me, but we're doing all kinds of fun, cool stuff for the Kickstarter. Like we're doing Motel Sick key fobs, like the old 70s style diamond looking, acrylic ones. Tea towels with the Motel Sick logo on them. I'm writing a bunch of flash fiction for some of the high tier people. And that should come out. I believe our projected date is November 26th, in just about 3 months from time of recording. So you'll see more about that as we get ready to promote the actual book. But I'm so proud of it. I'm so happy with it. It's bizarre. It feels like it fell in from a reality just next to ours. It's going to be so much fun.
Wow, that is really exciting.
I'm super stoked, and everyone's been so cool. And again, like I was saying earlier, making friends, being nice. Like so many of these, the big fish in this book, they're working for less than they can demand just about anywhere, and it's because I asked them nicely, and they were like, "For you, yeah,
yeah."
And that's so cool. It's just again, I guess the idea is be the kind of person that you'd want to work with.
Yep.
So yeah,
Absolutely.
I'm super excited. You'll be able to find it wherever books are sold, come November. We'll have our little website up, rochambeaupublishing.com. There's not much there yet, but I'm kind of working on it.
Cool.
Yeah.
And then we'll have links for all that in the description, guys.
Totally.
You have a link tree, right?
Oh, yes. Yeah, you can just link them to my link tree. That'll send them down a million rabbit holes.
All right. So before we get to the Mad Lib, do you have a question for me? Because I do like to give guests a chance to ask me something if they want to.
If you were a flavor, what flavor would you be?
Wow. I guess I would be cherry lime.
Cherry lime. Why is that?
Yeah, because I'm sweet and fruity, but underneath there's a tartness there.
Ah, there's an acidity hidden beneath the surface. I like it.
All right.
Also, that's just a great flavor combo.
Yes, I'm a fan of it in life.
Well
Actually,
chosen.
my soap shop, we have one of our biggest selling lip balms is Cherry Lime Ricky.
Oh my God, that sounds amazing.
Favorite. Yeah, our lip balm flavors are great because we do blue strawberry lemonade. We do a chocolate strawberry and a cherry cordial, which is like chocolate.
Oh my God.
And almond
awesome.
and cherry. Yeah.
And almond and cherry is such a good combo too. Oh my God.
Yeah. And we do some of them, people requested them and I didn't know if they were going to be good or not. Like we did one that's vanilla mint and I wasn't sure that was a thing that would work. And it totally did.
There it is. And you have a soap shop? I need to do a deep dive on you now. That's
you
exciting.
Really do. Yeah, our shop.
You don't do bath bombs, do you?
You know what? We don't do bath bombs. That's one of the things that we don't do. We do soaps. We do soap and lip balms are the main aspects of Scared Soapless, but we also have a separate resin shop now. So we do soap dishes and little trinket boxes and stuff. All of our resin projects are useful because I don't like when people do this, like, here's a crystal frog that's the size of your coffee table. Like, what does it do?
What do I do with it?
Paper really does something. So all of our stuff has a function, whether it's wearable or it's a keychain or a magnet for your fridge or,
Well, I may have to check out your soap shop. I'm kind of excited about some of those flavor combinations.
Well, we're on Coffee, so it's coffee/Scared Soapless is where you find us there. So in the meantime, I'm gonna need some words from you. I need adjectives. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 adjectives. My goodness, let's have them.
So many adjectives. Okay, all right. This is 7. All right, here we go. Soapy. Smooth. Polychromatic.
I was about to say, colors are fine if you're having trouble, and then you said polychromatic. So
yeah.
No trouble there.
Filthy. Sticky. Round.
All right, one more.
Squirming.
All right, and I need an animal, plural.
Turtles.
A verb ending in ing.
Dancing.
A person in room that is always the guest. And a plural noun.
Okay. Let's see. A person. Say that one again.
Plural noun.
A plural. Okay. Plural noun. Let's go with hats.
All right. I need another plural
noun. Let's go with slime balls.
All right. I need a noun, a singular one. Actually, I need three nouns.
Oh, okay. Voodoo doll. Diamond. Postcard.
And 2 adverbs.
Let's do deliciously and quietly.
All right. So this is The Curse of the Billy Goats. And this is from the sports section of the Mad Lib book. It's a big, giant book. All right. The Chicago Turtles are famous for their bad luck and long dancing streaks. Many people call it a soapy curse. As the story goes, Michael, an immigrant from Transylvania, had 2 tickets to the 1945 World Series against the Detroit Slimeballs. Having no place to leave his smooth pet goat, Dracula, he brought it to the ballpark. Unfortunately, before the polychromatic game was over, it started to rain cats and hats. The goat, soaked to the voodoo doll, began to smell so filthy that the owner of the sticky baseball team deliciously ordered the goat out of the stadium. The owner of the goat was madder than a diamond and said he was putting a round curse on the squirming team. To this day, that team still struggles quietly in postseason play. They haven't won a postcard series since 1908.
There's a lot of truth in that.
Irreverent. I know, right? Yeah, well, I mean, I've been a fan of the Detroit Slimeballs for years. But,
yeah. Well, they always have a rough season with they're sticky. They're very sticky, and that's not productive for baseball. But what are you gonna do?
Well, I mean, you soak to the voodoo doll. That's right. What are you gonna do?
What are you gonna do?
So, dude, I am so glad you could be here. This was a great conversation. I very much enjoyed it.
Well, thank you so much for having me. This was a blast.
Yeah, right on. So we want to remind all our listeners to find us on Coffee, where we are sometimes hilarious horror because the magazine sponsors the show. So if you want to support us, that is the way. And you also get the magazine, which, oh my God, it's so good. because the stories are sometimes hilarious and they're also horror. It's exactly what it sounds like. So we will see everybody next week.